At this time, I'd like to call to order the Fishers Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for Wednesday, October 27th, 2021. I'd ask you to please rise to state our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Secretary, could you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Grinsley.
Here.
Mr. Stevenson.
Here.
Mr. Fain.
Here.
And Mr. Ferrucci.
Here. We have everyone present. We have a quorum available to conduct tonight's meeting. At this point, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the previous minutes.
Make a motion to approve the previous minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstain? I abstain. I wasn't here last week, or last month. Okay. All right, at this point, I'd like to start the public hearing. The first case and only case on our docket this evening is case VA 21-37, Kunkel Drive-Thru at 13588 Bent Grass Lane in Fishers, 46038. Scott Kunkel is requesting approval of a development standards variance from UDO section 5.4.8.D2C to allow a drive-through service to be less than 400 feet from a residential use. The site in question is located on the northeast side of 135th and State Road 37. Is Mr. Kunkel here? Yes, sir. Sir, would you please approach the podium, state your name, address, and go ahead and proceed with your petition?
My name is Scott Kunkel, 505 South 5th Street, Champaign, Illinois. I appreciate the opportunity that's going to be this evening. We're working with planning staff on the development of a single-story retail building at the corner that you identified. So a little over 12,000 square feet, intended for multiple tenants. We have one of the tenant bays that we've designated for use of a drive-through that's at the north side of the building. And relatively late in the process, it was discovered that section of the code ordinance that causes the problem with the proximity to residential. So we're here to you this evening asking for relief from that. We took a look at some measures that we could do to try to mitigate that impact by repurposing some of the excess parking we had into a relatively dense landscape barrier that would help to create a shadow, if you will, between the drive-through use for both the drive-through window and the menu board and the closest residential uses. Would be appropriate to show the keys this time as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And if you want to hit the presentation with the mouse there, if you hit that presentation, it'll go up on the screen.
Oh, is this right here?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, great. You can see here the location of the site indicated at the northeast corner of 135th and 37. Noted a couple things in there. We initially, when this was brought to our attention, we assumed it was actually related to just residential zoning districts. And so we've noted on there the 916-foot offset to the R4 district to the east and the nearly 1,500-foot offset to the R2 district to the west. Then it was noted later that that it also deals with any residential uses, even if it's in a district that wouldn't normally be designated for residential. And apparently there are some residential uses in that industrial district that's in purple. So the two buildings that are at the southwest corner of that I-1 zoning district are the ones that would be within the 400 feet of where our building would be. So let's see here. So this is an overview of the development. So Bent Grass Lane is to your right, 135th is to the bottom, and State Route 37 is to the left. The residential buildings that are in question are to the upper right from this drawing. You can see the configuration of the building and then the drive-through that accesses, that comes around the back of the building and then pulls up along the north side for the actual service window. And this, and I'll show you on the, well, you can see here, this is an area right here that we repurposed from parking to this dense vegetative screen to help to shadow the both the menu board that'll be in this area and the pickup window will be here from that proximity to the northeast. And then to kind of help demonstrate that, this is to scale, showing the two buildings that are within that 400 foot. I drew an arc on this plan to show you for both buildings 1 and 2 where that 400-foot line is. The little red dot shows where the drive-through pickup window is. The blue strip is the available area for the menu boards. And what I did is I just projected lines from those showing what the screening effect is relative to both the menu board and for the drive-through window to create that both visual and audio screening relative to the residential buildings to the northeast. So it's our hope that you will consider that to be an appropriate mitigation for that proximity and would allow us to move ahead with this plan as depicted.
Thank you, sir. At this point, I'd like to open the public hearing. If anyone is here to speak as to this petition, we'd ask you to please approach the podium, state your name and address, and go ahead and state what you'd like to say with respect to the petition.
Hello, my name is Sue Anthony. I live at 13857 Canopy Lane, Fishers, Indiana, and I am here representing the ownership of Regency Windsor and the Woods of Britain, which are those 2 buildings noted in the top right corner. Our take on this is that there have been studies made. The 400 feet variance has been in place for reasons. Minimizing that would be of only detriment to our community and to the value of our community. While we respect it could add value to their property and their development, it will decrease the value of ours potentially. We respect that they are proposing some landscaping, but he said it himself, it will only mitigate, it will not prevent the noise and the potential of detriment to our residents of those communities and those buildings that live there. We do have very long-term rental bases, meaning that our residents are not typical apartment dwellers that are only there for a few years. Ours are there for more like 5, 6, 7, 8 years at a time. So we would hate for a long-term resident that's enjoyed the peace to have now the lights and the sound from a potential drive-through. Again, it would not having a drive-through would not prevent them from building with that strip mall. It would only prevent the noise potential carrying over to our community. And also, in addition to the noise level, I'm sure you're aware of the 37 work that's being done, and we actually had to participate in a test with NDOT because of the decimal levels of that traffic was going to be so high. So it was proven that the landscaping, the mature 20-year plus landscaping that we had in place would not mitigate enough of the decimal level from the road traffic. So that's another reason why we don't feel that the plan of landscaping would mitigate this noise enough as well. It's a studied NDOT study that proved that a wall was the only thing that was going to do it. We certainly don't want to see a wall there either. That's why we respectfully request that we stick with the 400 feet and not allow this variance to occur.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Anthony.
you.
Appreciate it. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak as to this petition? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and ask staff to present, please.
Bree King with Planning and Zoning. It's just a quick overview here. Our petitioner is Scott Kunkel, and our current zoning is PUDM, is in the Fishers Marketplace. The existing land use is vacant. To the north, there is the Verizon store. He is seeking a variance from UDO 5.4.8.D to B. C addresses a drive-through that is not associated with the restaurant or coffee house. That user is not yet defined there. So just wanting to be closer than 400 feet to a residential use. If you notice, it is measured to the building, not the property line. So here is an overview of the location. The multifamily is highlighted in blue there. If you can see, there is landscaping provided along the parking lots, as well as bent grass lane. The Woods of Britain is an apartment complex highlighted in blue and is within that 400 feet of the proposed drive-through operation, which is measured from the mini board to the closest residential building. Here's that exhibit that shows the arc, which is the closest that the mini board would be to the residential building. They are asking for 320 feet. The drive-through window itself would be 390 feet in that second arc there. We had one letter of remonstration from Sue Anthony, who also spoke tonight, so I'll just highlight the concerns that were also in that letter. So the noise concerns, difficulty in renting those homes that were closest to the drive-through, and worries that the landscaping are insufficient to buffer the noise. Staff recommends approval of the variance as location the drive-through is proposed at is the most aesthetically pleasing, and it is not along one of the frontages. If approved, we recommend the following commitments: that the variance approval letter must be recorded with the county. And I'm available if you have any specific questions.
Board members, any questions for staff?
Was there any discussion about having the drive-through on a different part of the building further away?
So that was not specifically addressed, as the project had come through the process to this point before the issue was specifically called out.
Mr. Kunkel, can you speak to that question, please?
Yes, in fact, and that's kind of one of the unfortunate things about where we're at tonight. We had, at the early stages of the process, we had looked at a number of different drive-through configurations, and there's actually different planning staff that was associated with the project at the beginning, and that gentleman, I don't believe, is any longer on staff. And unfortunately, at that time, we'd given some assurances that that was the preferred location from staff's perspective for the drive-through. So we're pretty far down the road at this point with this project, and we've invested a fair amount of effort to get to this point, and we're kind of in a tough spot right now because we're kind of finding out late in the game that now it's not okay.
I see. Any other questions?
Bree, could you pull the site plan up again? To both the petitioner and our planning staff's comments, if you can pull the one more back that shows the full site plan. Locating the drive-through on the south side would not be preferred, as that's one of the entrances into this development. And then it being provided along 37 was also not preferred. So when staff was reviewing it, locating that on the east or that northeast side was the preferred location from staff reviewing it.
Howard, did you have a question?
Yeah, I guess a question of clarification, Mary. I believe your presentation said the drive-through will be approximately 390 feet away from the apartment complex.
So that would be the drive-through window. The menu boards have a general location, so the closest the menu boards would be 320. The window itself is 390.
Okay. And the 400 feet, that applies to the drive-through service or the window in terms
So
of?
that is specifically for windows, menu boards, and speakers associated.
Thank you.
So basically, we're being asked to approve 320 feet because that's the closest to the property.
Exactly.
I understand.
Okay.
Mr. Kunkel, can you speak to a couple things? First, can you talk about the landscape buffer that they're preparing, or what you proposed?
Yeah, we're proposing a dense arborvitae screen with mature arborvitae that will be 8 feet tall to start with. We had actually kicked around the idea internally of a wall, but we just thought aesthetically that was nowhere near as pleasing as the arborvitae. If at your recommendation you weren't quite satisfied with that, we could also do a double row of the arborvitae with a wall in between it if you wanted to have a kind of a belt and suspender approach to that shadow effect. We're kind of at your mercy at this point because the project doesn't work without the drive-through, and so whatever hoop we have to jump through to do it, we'll do it.
Have you had those discussions about the voluntary commitment to put up the arborvitae and a wall in between? to add an additional buffer there? Have you had those discussions with our staff?
Well, the arborvitae we have, but I guess tonight, if you had some conditions that you wanted to impose that were additional mitigation, we're open to just about anything.
Staff, do you have a comment on that?
I think adding additional screening for whatever conditions you guys would agree on would be fine.
Mr. Resner, you look like you have a comment to make. Thank you.
I would see a screening wall be similar in nature to the screening that we see around our dumpster enclosures. So that is the same material or like to the building. So it couldn't be just like a basic cinder block wall. It would have to match the aesthetics of the building, the same materials being used. That's what we would normally see wrapped around like a mechanical or dumpster enclosure. And so that's what I would anticipate seeing if you were to add that condition from a screening perspective.
But if it's acceptable to you, I'd like to still do the landscaping with that, just to kind of hide the wall as well, if that's okay.
Any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion?
I guess I'd make a comment before we have a motion. I do like the suggestion regarding the additional mitigation as relates to the landscaping. So how we arrive at that, is up for discussion if other board members have any comments or thoughts on that.
What I would expect would be a board member to put forth a motion with voluntary commitment. And if there is additional, anything left off of that voluntary commitment, we can do a friendly amendment to it.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yep.
So do we have a motion?
I'll let you do it.
I'd like to make a motion for approval on the variance, VA 21-37. And want to make sure that landscaping and wall is okay. You're going to do that? Oh, sorry, microphone. That you're volunteering to do this?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So
And-
we're talking about a wall and the arborvitae's on both sides.
Yeah, just imagine a wall sandwiched by arborvitae, so arborvitae on the building side and on the public side.
And how high would this wall be?
I would propose it be 8 feet tall.
Okay. And once that's in place, then we're good with the variance. And the approval letter for the variance would need to be recorded with the county, please.
We have a motion with a voluntary commitment as well as a variance being recorded. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Secretary, will you call the roll?
Mr. Grinsley,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Mr. Fain,
Yes.
and Mr. Ferrucci.
Yes, motion passes. Okay, we have no other petitions on the docket tonight. Is there any old business or new business to discuss? Okay, staff communication, seeing none. At this point, we take a motion to close the hearing.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Adjourned.